You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling Oklahoma stories through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com and definitely on Instagram at oklahomahof. Let's get into today's episode. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I know you're extremely busy. It's been 2 years since I previously recorded with Lou. It was episode 123, which for people who don't know, Lou is a big part of your team, does a lot of behind-the-scenes camera work, and he's featured all over the stuff. But he's kind of like the guy who set up this. If you're watching on video, he set up this awesome scene for us with multiple cameras and makes me look a lot better than I do and more professional than I do. So
thank you, Lou.
Shout out to Lou for that. But I mean, since we did our podcast 2 years ago, I said, look, whenever the boys are ready, let's set it up, because a lot of, you have a huge following, not just on, commercially through TV, but social media. And just, I always said to Lou that you guys kind of seem to, I guess, adopt the social media side of things a lot more than others or people who you're aligned with, in the industry, which is really cool to see. But I guess a lot of people, see you doing crazy projects and cars and camper vans and the boat down the river, which was awesome. And the amount of water that came out of the back of that thing was pretty epic. The camper was pretty good. I liked you messing with people. The camper.
Oh, that was a lot of fun.
Going?
Yeah.
We'll get into all the other projects and kind of the meaning behind them. But before we do, talk a little bit about, I guess, kind of growing up in Oklahoma, maybe your origin story and previous life to Azn and Farmtruck.
Go ahead, Azn.
So, born and raised. I'll let Farmtruck tell his history, but I'm born and raised just a middle-class kid. Went to Putnam City Original, graduated 2000. I went to Northridge Elementary. I went to Cooper Middle School when it was first built. And so, typical Oklahoma childhood, nothing major there. And then I think that your hobbies somewhat become those who you surround yourself with, naturally, right? And so my friends just became attracted to the automotive industry, whether it was a hot rod pickup, whether it was Big Chief on the show and his Pontiac, whether it was a Flip in his car, Kamikaze, all these guys from the show I went to high school with, I kind of saw them as cool. Right? Even though they were my peers, I saw what they were doing as cool because I wasn't doing anything. And that led me into the cruising Route 66 and building a car of my own with my father and meeting Farmtruck along the way, all in Oklahoma.
Yeah. What's the age gap between you guys?
About 20 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there.
For sure, yeah.
What about you?
Well, I was born in Oklahoma, Baptist Hospital. Moved to Bethany in 1967. I was 5 years old. And I kind of, went to Putnam City Schools, grew up with my brothers, street racing, cruising on Route 66. We grew up a mile away. I'd ride my bicycle down and I'd watch the cars cruise. I was also brought home from the hospital in a 1956 Ford pickup. It had some dirt track motor in it that my dad picked up, and it was loud and rumbled.
You remember?
Caught on fire all the time.
That was the moment.
That was the moment.
Yeah.
But anyway, no one else in my family really has gotten into cars. I say my brothers raced, but it was my brother's friends, right? And I was always fascinated with the horsepower, and I was just attracted to it for whatever reason. I blame it on the ride from the home from the hospital.
Are you the youngest of the brothers?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you always looked up to them and their friends
right,
and always wanted to be with them, what they're doing, kind of typical younger brother.
That's right.
Yeah.
There was Jack Harned. He had a Bandit Trans Am. And then there was Lee Foreman. He had the Mustang, the fastback Mustang, which was awesome.
Yeah. The bullet Steve McQueen type.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. It had the 351 Cleveland in it.
Okay.
And they were always working on this thing, trying to get it right. There was another guy named Troy Wheeler that had this awesome motor, and he kept pulling it out and putting it in different cars. Yeah. And I think my favorite one was he had an Impala. It was an old Chevy Impala that he put it in, and we all thought it was a heavy car, but man, that thing would light them up and go.
Yeah.
So
Much simpler times.
that's right.
Right.
And then when I first met Asian, should I let you ask this question?
No, I
Okay.
mean, you're taking the words
Right.
right out of my mouth. This is
Okay.
awesome. You're doing great. It's like
So-
you're trained. It's like you've done this before.
When I first met Asian, we were cruising Route 66, and the thing about him, here's this young kid, but the first thing that struck me, he's listening to the Beach Boys,
No
and I'm
judgment,
like,
right?
man, this kid has an music and hot rod education.
Yeah.
I thought he was immediately the coolest young guy I'd ever met because he was blaring it, the Beach Boys. What's cooler than that?
Yeah.
I think that's the purpose of it all, right? I was always the least cool kid in my school, and we're all trying to seek that talent or that car or the way to dress to make yourself feel cool,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And music makes you feel cool, right? And depending on where you heard it first, really makes you feel cool.
Right.
And the car that you're in, if it's yours, it doesn't even have to be yours. You can borrow it. It makes you
Yeah.
feel cool, right? I think that we all stay at a fundamental uncool in our daily lives,
Yeah.
right? And we seek and reach for those things that make us feel just heighten that experience.
Right.
And as a kid, nothing heightened it more for me than riding in a hot rod and listening to oldies, man.
Yeah.
And that just comes from your raise, right? Dad, listening to oldies, his friends listen to oldies and working
Yeah.
on. It's just a part of the makeup of the DNA of growing up.
Music's so personal too, isn't it? And then
Yeah.
you tie it to cars, and you always bring
Sure.
back all the memories of where you heard
Right.
that song, who you were driving
Right.
with.
It's anchored in.
Yeah, it's pretty special moments for sure. And I'm sure we've all got those memories of driving somewhere with friends, family, dads, granddads, whoever, and
Right.
that first moment is pretty. I mean, it's etched into your mind,
And
isn't it?
it's personal.
Very personal.
Right? And that's what it is. And when you find someone else that connects with that personal emotion or attachment you have, you're just like, whoa, we need to talk, right? Like we need to have a
Right.
conversation about what we like here, right? And then you just become friends.
Yeah.
Your old friends and even music hold your history, and when you hear that song, whenever I hear the Beach Boys, I grew up listening to the Beach Boys, but it always reminds me of Asian, and his little Chevy 2, red Chevy 2.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
And your friends and the music hold your history.
Yeah.
it does.
So this was obviously, long before you guys made a career out of, doing what you do.
Well, now that was a mistake. we didn't mean to do that.
We didn't make it.
Yeah,
but we do.
what were you doing at that time? Like, were you going to school? Did you graduate? Were you, what were you working at? Like, obviously, cars is a passion and love on the side that any spare money that we have is probably going into our car somehow.
Sure.
What was the the day job at that point?
I was actually I was trying to go towards a graphic design degree of some
Okay.
sort. I was going to a technical institute, Metro Tech, here off of South Bryan. I was actually going with Lou at the time, so we were students in the same class. And
How fortunate of you!
I know, right? What's the serendipitous, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it was. I still do that, right? Like it was
Right.
still a goal I wanted to be a magazine editor. I wanted to work in the automotive. I wanted to work for Hot Rod Magazine, right? I had all these, these California dreams, right? And graphic design was going to take me there. And you get good enough something. It doesn't mean that you love it, but it means that I'm kind of married to this. I got good enough at it. And so it brought me further along, and I started using that talent to give street racers T-shirts, right? Design websites, make stickers. We had a sign shop, so I was able to contribute to our very small car culture with my talents, and that kind of carried me for a while there.
So that was your
my
your
thing.
plan to get into the car world, was being
the
graphics.
sign guy, the graphic designer, bringing because all industries need that.
Sure.
And so that was my if you're going to come to class and you don't know the homework, bring pizza, right? I was bringing stickers, I was bringing
Right.
T-shirts, I was saying, hey, I made this stuff, and they would appreciate it at the time.
Yeah. That explains a lot of what you do now.
Yeah.
Right? Like with all the merch and all the cool
Right.
collaborations and graphic stuff.
It all just kind of
That's right.
flowed right into
Yeah.
it. It really did.
What about you?
Well, I was always interested in building things and
Yeah.
banging on things with hammers and turning screws and wrenches and from when I was in diapers before I could talk, I was always interested in what my father was doing, and he'd have me standing on the piece of plywood to hold it down while he cut it. And I just thought, man, this guy, he's doing cool stuff. So I grew up as a contractor, laid brick. I was a carpenter for a while. Did wood floors, set tile, hung sheetrock, you name it. I call myself a house mechanic.
Okay.
Roofing, whatever,
Yeah.
Plumbing.
I have a leak in my shower right now. It's driving me
Right
nuts.
after this, right?
That's a problem. That's a problem.
That is a problem.
Got a little drip right now. It's driving me nuts. Yeah. So you just kind of grew up like always good with your hands, and then kind of just wanted to do stuff like that. Never thought about office job was like the death of humankind, I guess.
Is my dad, he never called anybody for anything. Like the repairman.
Yeah.
He was the repairman. He was the mechanic. He was the roofer. He was, you name it.
Back when
he
men
was
were men.
it. That's
Yeah.
right.
Not like me. I'm like, I need someone to fix
Well,
this.
Me too.
whenever he was born in the 30s, there wasn't anyone to call.
Right.
So you just grew up doing it all.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of way I was raised. The transition was pretty easy for me to convert over to cars.
Right.
Because we built the farm truck in a garage, and just in our spare time we built it, and
Just using the geometry that you
Sure.
knew from contracting, right?
Yeah.
all right, well, we need to cut this right here. Well, it's not wood, it's not brick, it's not tile, it's metal. Okay, I'll cut it. It's different tools.
Yeah.
Basically the same skill set.
Right. So that's kind of like the backstory, how you guys meet on, cruising around,
Yeah.
and you're kind of part of the same scene.
Yeah.
Fast forward then, when does it come to like you have now joined together and you are this like, I guess the brand or the
Right.
it's Farmtruck Azn. Like, how does that all come
Never-
around?
Yeah, we never really thought about it that way
Right.
until the show really came out, right? We just
Yeah.
were friends. And
So the show was coming, so you were involved generally in the scene then, and then obviously the show comes.
Yeah, we were involved in the scene.
Okay.
You take the scene and you scale it. I firmly believe that nothing has really changed. We're just an exaggerated version of what we were then.
Which is great, yeah.
Right?
That's what the power is, right? That's like the golden nugget of
think so.
content is like, we don't want to take away, we don't want to make this corporate. Like, keep
Yeah.
it who you are, we'll just bring more cameras.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
that's what it is. And so we would just, basically, we would just build stupid stuff, or
Yeah.
we'd go out cruising and look for races. We would trick people in the farm truck, make them think it's slow, and take a little money here and there, right? We thought that was normal. We really did, in our own little world. And the other guys kind of did a version of that, but they were more serious. They were a little more cutthroat, a little bit more edgy, a little bit more, we need
Sure,
to-
there was a list, and Big Chief started a website.
Okay.
And if you wanted to be on that list, you got on the website,
Yeah.
Called someone
people
out.
pretty much the same way as
As it is
what it
now,
happens.
yeah.
It's a little bit different, but basically the same.
Yeah, not much has really changed. So people are like, "Oh, so much is not really." If they only knew what we started with, they would realize that not really much has changed.
Yeah.
He's still the leader.
You've just got cameras now.
We've just got cameras,
That's right.
and the cars are a little different. We're
Right.
making more power. We wear different clothes. We are a little more commercial.
Yeah,
You have to be, right?
Right, of course.
There's no sustainability in doing things for free for the rest of your
and then
life.
people start watching and they want you to get faster, and cars go, and then budgets and all the other
That's right.
nonsense comes into it, right?
That's
and
right.
Right.
generally progression is that you go from, I guess, doing this as a hobby to wow, we're investing a significant amount of money in our cars and
That's
our
right.
production because like this is a legit thing now, not
It's
just
true.
racing down the road because you just for the love of it.
Yeah, and
Which
you,
I'm still do that.
And hey, people look at that and they're like, well, why can't you just do that? But it's much like this. We could just talk to ourselves,
Yeah.
but then where's you? You
Right.
have to come in here to tell people that we're talking to you, and then you have to find a way to pay for this microphone
Yeah,
again
yeah.
and again and again, and if it breaks, you got to pay for it. And then so you have to find a way to make a little bit of money
Yeah.
to recoup for the losses that you incur. that's life.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
It begins to just kind of spread out, and everybody gets their cut, whether it's greed or not.
Right.
It's you need to pay for yourself. You need to live. Someone needs to buy lunch.
Yeah. So I guess the show puts you two together then, right? But you're already building the farm truck at this. You're already
Whenever they first approached us,
Yeah.
They wanted to film us racing. We thought they were cops, and we were like, "Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You want to film
Seen
us
this movie before.
right?
Yeah.
You know,
nice job.
try.
Yeah.
But it was Big Chief that set it all up.
Yeah.
They came out with some cameras, and they shot a sizzle reel pilot, and they I guess they interviewed a dozen of us, and only 7 people maybe got a contract. And Asian and I guess we were good enough talkers.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do, but I knew he was a good talker. And in the real world, he was the one that always went out and got the races.
Gotcha.
He always worried me because he's always setting me up with these cars with wheelie bars and parachutes. And I'm like, I can't outrun. Yes, you can. You can.
They don't know what's under.
Yeah,
That's
they don't.
right. You're all
They
good.
don't.
Yeah.
We'd get out there and we'd win. So I knew that it needed to be natural, and we just needed to be who we were.
Yeah.
He had just moved back from California, and the timing was perfect. And
Yeah. What were you in California for?
I worked for an aftermarket parts company. They make polyurethane bushings. It was a company called Energy Suspension. And I actually got a big education out there, just, myself and career-wise, because they took me to the large trade shows. They took me to the SEMAs, the PRIs, the National Parts Warehouses, and it I cut my teeth on learning. I got into that world thinking, oh, it's all fun. Everybody just makes car parts and works. It's nothing like that. The car world is more corporate than it is car, right? And so I had to learn, and I didn't like that world. I learned it, but I didn't like it. And I thought, man, I need to go back to Oklahoma and do what I really loved. And I didn't know that was going to pay dividends in my future, right? I didn't know the education I got out there as a struggle would lend itself to what we're doing now, and it actually lended itself exactly to what we needed to do.
That's right.
It was weird how it fit.
We were able to hit the ground running.
Yeah, because of what I knew.
Right.
But I didn't want to know it, right?
Yeah.
So
Product of just your environment and the places that you're at. But it sounds like, most Oklahomans, you tried as hard to get out of here fast as possible, right? And then you get pulled back.
That's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Which is, there's plenty of stories of people in all industries who've done that, and even if it's family or whatever has brought them back, you did come back. And
yeah, I think it's important to know. I think your ego would get in the way of not coming back. Right. Like, oh, I got something to prove.
Yeah.
I've got to prove to the people in California. I got something to prove to my friends that I made it. But I had this just feeling on the inside that tug at me, and I was like, I need to go home as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And I did. I sold everything before I left to California. I sold everything after I left California. I came back with nothing.
Yeah.
He gave me my first job coming back. He's like, Asian, if you need a job, you lay floors, and did that for about a month and quit.
I'm not doing it. This sucks. This is awful.
That was man's work. Nah, he hustled. He did a great job.
Yeah. Just hand me tools.
That was just something to keep him busy until something else came along.
Yeah, he helped me out. But then about a year later, the year or so, 2 years, whatever.
I don't know, dude. It seemed like a couple of months.
I know, right?
But it was probably a year, maybe.
Yeah. They called and they were like, "Hey, we're interested." Complete random. We didn't expect anything. We move on with our lives. But they called and said, "Hey, we're gonna do this thing." Okay, whatever. Click. 7 months later, Discovery bought it, guys.
Right.
We're gonna film. It's gonna be 8 weeks, 8 episodes.
Yeah.
And we're like, whatever.
Yeah,
and,
sure. Still don't think this is gonna happen.
One of the hardest things we've ever done. Trying to cram all of our personality into 8 weeks, right? All the while learning how they do it.
Yeah.
So February 1st, just past February of 22, marked our 10th year.
That's crazy.
Of doing Street Outlaws.
It's gone so fast.
Yeah.
So that was our first day to film.
Yeah.
So we're on our 10th year.
When you get there on that first day and you've got producers and cameras and people miking you up and lights everywhere, what's going through your mind? Are you thinking like, And you were still waiting for someone to pinch you to say,
Pure
like, you know,
fear.
like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
What do we say? What do we do?
Yeah.
You know, we were nervous. And then, you know, what calmed us down is, you know, we just said, look, man, we're not actors. We only know how to be us. We're going to be us. And if people don't like us, we'll go back to doing what we did before.
Yeah.
You know, we'll give this a shot. We'll give it everything we got. And here we are.
Yeah, but it was a bit of a fantasy world for the first 2 seasons.
It was.
It was a lot of changes were happening to everybody. A lot of temporary changes, right? When people say, "Oh, this guy changed," if he really did change, it's very temporary.
Yeah.
He's going to go back to who he was, right? You can't sustain something that isn't you.
Yeah.
So, you know, we tried to find ourselves. We tried to, you know, hey, why aren't our friends supporting us? Why are we
Right.
losing friends? All of this was a whirlwind of trying to understand why it was happening. And so
It happened way too fast.
it did happen way
Yeah.
too fast. It did, and we made mistakes, man. Mistakes were made.
Sure, we did.
and I have regrets. So you're like, you take it, I take some stuff back, right? Like, like I would. And I think everybody does. And hey, we're at a place now where I'm glad we went through that. But I'm glad I'm not there anymore. Right? Something can be too amazing. Something can be too amazing, and it will trick you.
Right.
It's a trap, right? Don't lose yourself in the amazingness of what you see around you, because that's what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes good.
Right, it makes good TV, doesn't
makes
it?
great
I mean, if you have a
television.
mental breakdown on TV,
Truly.
they don't. I mean, okay, he's
Yeah.
having a mental breakdown, but this is great TV.
It's
Yeah.
great
You know,
TV.
are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Doesn't matter.
And I don't blame
Film
them.
him.
They're getting
Yeah.
it right.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
and so, but it was an absolute about 1.5 years, 2 years of amazing.
Yeah.
And we didn't know how to handle it.
When did it get to the point where, like, I mean, it's been 10 years. What point did it get to that you quit your day job and were like, you know, like, we do this now? Like, when did it become a point where, I guess, you quit the day job and then went all into building project cars, branding, like, all of that, right?
Well, I quit my day job February 1st.
That sign-up check, that first contract. Okay, we're good.
Bought a Rolls Royce.
I'm
What do you want me to do?
Yeah. You know, I just thought, you know,
It was that big of a check then, obviously.
No, it was a big
no, it was not.
Yeah. Or you made no money contracting.
I just know me,
Yeah.
and I can't half do anything. And if I'm going to do it,
Yeah.
it's going to be all out, and I'm going to give it everything I got.
Yeah.
And I knew that, hey, you know, maybe I could turn this into something. And so I quit my job and went all out.
Yeah.
I don't know, Asian hung on for a while, his job.
Yeah. So going back, there was no money, right? And so
Yeah.
I am frugal to the core, right? And so I'm like, heck no, I'm not quitting that's the dumbest thing I'm gonna ever do. And so I tried to hold on. That was another mistake that was made,
Yeah.
right? It really was. I should have let go earlier, but I held on through my frugality, through my
Sure.
responsibility to the guy that I was helping at the time build a website. And it's a local company, Cruiser Core. They do Land Cruisers.
Yeah.
And I was trying to help him out. Really loved my job. He really took care of me. Like, why would I lose this for this temporary thing?
Right.
And I ended up making him mad, right? Like, because I'd come in late after filming, and you know, what are you doing, kid? You're coming in
Yeah.
late, bragging about filming, and you're showing up late. I ruined that, and he ultimately came in and said, "Hey, you're gonna quit, or I'm gonna fire you."
Yeah.
And I'm
He
like,
gave you the option.
Yeah, he really did, and he goes, "I love you."
He knew where it was going.
He knew.
Yeah.
And he goes, "I want you to do you." He says, "But you're gonna have to quit, or I'm gonna." And I was like, "Okay."
But also, he was killing himself. You
Working
know,
2 hours,
filming all hours of the night,
Right.
catching 2 hours sleep, and then showing up for work.
Yeah.
You know,
It's doing nobody any good.
You know,
Right.
Right.
his boss knew it, and his boss cared.
Yeah.
You know,
He did.
cared enough to fire him.
This is gonna suck right now. This is the best thing for you.
Yeah,
I
the best
promise.
thing. I love you. I do this for you.
If you stop doing that thing, you can always come back.
Yeah. And then that's when I quit. That's when I went hard on the branding. I was like, okay, well, I'm no longer doing it for this. If I'm not doing that, what am I doing when we're not filming? And I was like, I need to do
Right.
what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
that's when I went hard on the branding, tried to help out the other guys, pushed hard on our merch website, things of that nature.
So that came from just you wanting to get into it rather than like whoever was it Discovery?
Yeah.
So Discovery didn't say to you
No,
guys,
they didn't
we
care.
want you to go build a brand,
Nope.
get your Instagram, social media. Like
Nope.
that was
Oh,
all like
no,
self,
nothing.
like
No,
that was
no,
all
no,
you.
no.
Not at the time.
Looking
They-
at it from the outside, looking back now, you'd think they'd want you to just generate more buzz, right?
You think
but I
they
guess
did.
10 years ago, I mean, it was still early on with
They
social
didn't have
media.
the manpower to really teach us
Yeah.
that yet. right?
Yeah.
They didn't have their own maybe social media department. That's 10
Sure.
years,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's a short time, but a long time for social
But,
media. And they didn't really have that ready yet. Twitter was it.
Right.
Twitter was the biggest thing at the time. Facebook was rolling, but it wasn't an advertising, megalodon it is now.
Right, because I mean, right now, I think I checked this morning, you guys are at 3.4 million
it's awesome.
followers, I think, or likes or page followers on,
It's
on
crazy.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Which, when you put that, I always think when people have huge followings, like you put that into people, right? And you put them in a stadium and think, that's a lot of people.
It's Oklahoma,
right? It's Oklahoma, like,
right.
Exactly. Across the world.
And at the time, it was actually really easy. Facebook was the TikTok, so you could create content and you're racking them up. Now it's very difficult, right?
Yeah.
But at the time, that was the new TikTok, and it was really easy to gain followers if you had content.
Right. But you mentioned there that you didn't just do it for you guys, you did it for everybody.
Tried.
Or at least, because a lot of these guys,
some of them did a good job.
Well, but they don't. Social media is just like whatever at that time, right?
Sure.
They go, why do I want to do that?
We got a television show, guys.
Yeah, and it's not. They don't think of. They're not like you. They didn't grow up in branding or wanting.
That's right.
So they were just normal guys who just loved to race.
That's right.
Right. The last thing they thought about was, we need more people following us, right? Or brand.
Yeah.
Because the just love of racing.
For me, one
was
phone
all
wasn't
they
enough.
needed.
It wasn't enough. We needed to be everywhere, right?
Right.
I needed to be able to connect to more people.
Yeah.
One thing that we stuck to is if you want to be successful at whatever you're doing, you need to wish success and help other people be successful.
Mm-hmm.
In return, they will help you.
Yeah.
And that's real success. That's success that will last you a long, long lifetime.
Yeah.
And that's something that we always wanted to do. Always wanted to help all the other street outlaws.
And some of them did a great job by themselves. They didn't need our help, but others I saw that they just were oblivious to it. And so we just tried to maybe educate them or help them with their shirts, design. I don't know.
Others are still oblivious to it.
They just, or they don't care.
Right.
They
It's
just
not
don't.
part of their
But it's so important,
business
right?
model.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I compare it to high school where the popular kids were the ones that did the most talking or doing. You had to be an athlete or be in a drama or be a cheerleader or football.
Yeah.
You had to have a voice, and if you didn't, you were not known, right? And same goes for the world, right? And television, and our list is the same. You can look at the top characters, and the top characters are the ones that use their voice,
right?
Whether they're winning or they're talking, and that's most important in this world.
One is looking exactly what you just said. Is looking at it like characters in a show, right? You have to elevate yourself on there, because if we were here talking and coming across like it's not. Extras. You're right. And that's probably something you had to learn. That's not something that you just generally did every day, right? I mean, you don't grow up being, working laying tile with acting as somebody else. Like you can especially when people listening, the first time they put themselves on video and they're like, yeah, I thought I was really like animated, and then they watch it again and like, wow, that sucked.
It always sucks.
Right?
It always sucks.
You've got to go through that.
You got to go through all of it.
It's conscious, like
that's right. It's difficult.
It's cringy.
Difficult to watch yourself or hear yourself.
Definitely.
But it wears off quick, and you get used to it.
Yeah.
You learn that that's just who you are, and that's what the world has been seeing since you've been alive.
Right.
And get used to that, because it doesn't matter. People can connect to your voice, the way you talk, your mannerisms. Who knows what people like, right? But they'll listen to you tell the same story as some other guy, but they like the way that you do it.
Right.
Just the way it is.
People tell me that because I have an accent. I don't believe it.
It's going to be, you're going to do well, man.
I'm trying my best.
We're glad we're not competing with you.
You didn't have an accent till you came here.
You're right, exactly. No, you're right. Totally right. And when I go home, I get so much crap from my friends when
Texas.
I go home, because they're just like, you sound like such an American.
Yeah. You're actually from West Virginia.
This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling Oklahoma stories through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com and definitely on Instagram at oklahomahof.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.